I want to ask this question. This is a rhetorical question because I know the answer. I wonder how ready NC State fans are, NC State basketball fans. I wonder how ready you are for a change. And that, on the surface, could mean a new head coach. But maybe more importantly, it could be a greater commitment to fully supporting the basketball program with what is necessary to help Kevin Keatts, who is a good head coach, take the program to a level where we don't see the apathy of, I don't know what the announced attendance was last night, but I do know watching the game, I saw, look, you could say as many empty seats as I saw people. I think I did. And it was pretty close in the lower bowl, so it wasn't more full in the upper bowl.
Yeah, at one point they were thinking that NC State fans were high-fiving the opponent. Did you see that part?
No.
Someone made a shot on the Louisville side, and I think the fans were just trying to get him to not fall on them, and he thought that they were high-fiving,
really?
And so he was like high-fiving State fans. Yeah, it was weird.
That is strange.
Yeah.
The Kevin Keatts era, which, look, it started off, it's kind of weird, right? They have been to 3 NCAA tournaments. Let me just give you the broad numbers for Keatts in 7+ seasons. His record is above 500. It's not stellar, but it's above 500. His ACC record is below 500. And I think we would all agree he has not exactly entered the league in its heyday. Now, when he first got here, UNC, Duke, Virginia were all excellent. Remember, Virginia was a power at the time. His record is 66-80. That includes a 10-4 season. I'm sorry, a 12-4 season in the league. It includes 11-7. It includes some good years, but ultimately 66-80 in conference play. Here are his ACC finishes in terms of the standings. 5th, tied for 3rd, tied for 8th, tied for 6th. We're pretty good right there, right? 9th, 15th, 6th, 10th. That was last year. And right now, this year, they are tied for 16th. In a 3-way tie with Miami and Boston College, in 16th place in the ACC. Barring something pretty wild, not to the extent of last year pretty wild, but barring something that we do not expect at this point, the Wolfpack are going to miss the ACC tournament. So the basketball program that primarily, along with others, but primarily was the foundation of this conference. Because this is really where the fire started. When Everett Case got here and Reynolds Coliseum and all of that, how many of the first ACC tournaments were held at Reynolds? This is really where the league was formed. For them to miss out on the first ACC tournament with a cut where not everybody goes, nobody signed up for this. And obviously there were no guarantees, but I don't think anybody at the beginning of the season looked at NC State's roster and went, yep, that's a team that's not going to make the ACC tournament. But right now, minimum, you got to find 3 wins from their remaining, 7. But you probably got to find 4. Because unless you expect, there are 4 teams, I think there are 4 teams that have 5 wins right now. There might be 5 teams with 5 wins. Unless you expect one of them to lose out, which I guess they could, considering they're 5-7 or 5-8 at this point. State's going to have to get 6 wins. The only team they will win a tiebreak with right now is Notre Dame. They lost to Virginia. They lost to Cal twice. So they are 1-3 against teams with 5 wins. They play 2 of them. They play Syracuse at Syracuse. They play Georgia Tech at Georgia Tech. That is in 2 weeks. These are their next 3. This is the next 3 games for the Wolfpack. Boston College at home Saturday. Goes without saying it has to be a win. At UNC Wednesday. I wouldn't rule it out. North Carolina is looking at that game exactly the way NC State's looking at that game, though. We can't lose it. And then State has Wake Forest here in Raleigh. I don't know how many wins you see there. I'm not even going to offer a guess. But somehow, between now and the end of the season, the Wolfpack are going to have to come up with 4 wins. And that is not going to be easy. They close the year at home against Pitt and at Miami. Maybe they win their last 4. They win at Syracuse, Georgia Tech, home against Pitt, and at Miami. Obviously, 3 of those are on the road. It's not easy to win on the road, no matter who you're playing. So, we'll see if they can pull that off. But it really would mask the problem of this team. First of all, the roster is weird. There are 3 freshmen and a sophomore on this roster. I think they're 3 freshmen and a sophomore. There might be 4 freshmen. And there are a whole bunch of seniors who are exiting the program, including 2 of their 3 best scorers. Dontrez Styles, Marcus Hill, leaving. Hundley Hatfield, leaving. Middlebrooks, leaving. You got Jaden Taylor right now, right? Who's Jaden Taylor's leaving because he's the transfer from Butler. They've got 3 freshmen that maybe should play. Certainly one is Trey Parker, but even he isn't playing a ton. And then you've got McNeil and Hurd, both barely play. What's the future of this roster? What is the potential for any continuity for this team next year? We can talk about all sorts of things. If you're not going to recruit blue chip, and I'm not suggesting that NC State has to, but if you're not going to recruit blue chip players who are going to form for at least 1 year the core of your team that can win, you've got to recruit players who are going to form a foundation for your program going forward and then enhance in the transfer portal or just through the transfer method. Doesn't even have to be one of those seniors looking for a last run. Look, Casey Morcell was a good player at State. He got here with 3 years of eligibility left and performed very well. He wasn't a star. You don't necessarily need stars. You need guys who are going to be foundational pieces for your program if you are going to be successful. And this team, with 3 NCAA tournament appearances, including last year's miracle berth, has produced nothing in postseason play. They were 0-1 in their other 2 trips, and you could sit here and argue that they should have gone. Which year was it? I think it was the 3rd year for Kevin Keatts. They were ranked in the middle of the year. I guess it was the 18-19 season, the year that Virginia won the national championship. They were ranked for 6 weeks in the middle of the season, but they didn't have any non-conference wins of note. And the committee used that against them at the end. Now, we can sit here and say, well, State got screwed out of a bid. If you're in the at-large pool that then you don't get selected. If you're in that part of the on the at-large board and you don't get selected, listen to this very carefully. You didn't get screwed. You didn't do enough. And I think they went 24-12 that year. And if you didn't do enough, then you left it up to chance. So there were a lot of teams that year, I'm sure, that also didn't do enough, but they have to select 68 teams. So other teams got that bid. I don't think anybody gets screwed if you weren't invited to that tournament. Set that aside. If you throw out last year, and keep this in mind, they were 17-14 with very little of note to their credit before the ACC tournament. 17-14. That is an NIT team. They probably would not have been very highly seeded in the NIT. If they were an NIT team, they would have been the 3rd seed. So it wasn't a team that had performed well all year. It performed better than this year's team is performing. But it just sort of clicked. You came back and beat Louisville on Tuesday at the ACC tournament. You shocked Virginia, right? I think it was Wednesday, you shocked Virginia to win your second round game. And then you threw it all out there, and you just kept rolling 7. Happens. Then they got into the NCAA tournament. Same deal. They got hot. Guys became a little bit better than they were. DJ Burns remembered that he could play. He became America's darling. We loved it. But it was a fluke, right? We all have to admit that now.
It appears that way.
That last year, no, it happens, right? We have miracle runs to Final Fours. It's happened before. You know, you could point out to like George Mason. What? Jim Larinaga, the coach, made a Final Four. Loyola of Chicago. Remember Sister Jean? Right? Now there was a good basketball team. But, come on. NC State figured it out at the right time, had a great run, went to a Final Four. It was awesome. They will never take it away from any State fan, ever. But this year, this roster, which isn't great, but also isn't the worst roster in the league, This team can't beat the teams that it's supposed to beat. It got swept by Cal. Cal's not that good. In some of the games where you played your best, I speak specifically of the game against Duke, you simply got beat. You outplayed Duke, but you got beat by a bunch of better players. They should be proud of that. But where's that against the other teams? When you are NC State, if you are not willing to scrap, what are you doing? They don't have a go-to scorer. I get it. But they have guys who are capable. Feed somebody. Kevin Keatts said something before I guess it was during his radio show on Monday, which we didn't play, but it kind of disturbed me. Maybe we should have played it Monday. We were obviously all giddy, still talking about the Super Bowl and some other things. I guess we were talking about North Carolina not competing. And Kevin Keatts talked about his lineups and basically said, well, it's kind of by feel. They have played how many games now? They're 9-15. They have played 26 games. So before that, 25 games. By feel. You should know. We should know the 8 guys who are going to impact the scoreboard every single game that we play. And I'm not even saying that that's a Kevin Keatts problem. although it is. That is a roster problem. And my fear is that these freshmen who don't play, and even Trey Parker who does, will see this year, see the no-shows in the crowd, the apathy that is coursing through the program, and saying, you know what? I want to go somewhere else. And I wouldn't blame them for doing that. So with all of that said, let me get back to the very beginning. Is it time for a change in one of two ways? It's either new coach time, or it's we are going to support Kevin Keatts fully. Financially as a university, financially as the two NIL arms that fund football, and I guess other sports too. What are we doing? Make a choice. Either you're going to back Kevin Keatts or you're going to move on from Kevin Keatts. One of the two has to change. Again, I think Kevin Keatts is a good coach. But I will say this, almost every coach we talk about, almost every one, is a good coach. You're either a good coach or you're a really good recruiter that can over-recruit your bad coaching. I think Kevin Keatts is a good coach. I think he needs more resources if we want to get the most out of him. But if that isn't going to change, then you need a different coach. Because this, 8 years in, isn't where NC State should be. Not in year 8. In year 2, if you're going to finish, and they already have, by the way, finished last in the ACC. And that happened 4 seasons ago. 15th out of 15. If you can't get in the top 15 of the league this year, it ain't happening. So make a decision, NC State, because I think your fans would like to enjoy going to a game. And when we see what happened last night, which was a team, much like Carolina did on Monday, not compete in the second half.
Oh, fans aren't going to go see that.
Right. You're not. It just has to be better. Last night was, because Louisville is good to a point.